Now, I was pretty young when I went out on my own. And I think you just think like young kids think, like, you're just going to get this big job and it's going to go perfect. And then you're rich. And then it's just all daisies from there on out, right?
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk Podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by my friend Andrew Grace, a builder and remodeler in Ligonier, Pennsylvania, regular Fine Homebuilding contributor. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk Podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding Podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Andy, it's great to have you on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
So you're the only person who's been on Pro Talk twice, and it seemed like after 2 years of the pandemic, it would be worth talking to someone, revisiting how things turned out, what's been going on. And can you first tell me a little bit about Ligonier so folks have some context for where you live and work?
It's a small town, 50 miles east of Pittsburgh, kind of nestled between the mountains. The Appalachian Mountains, so.
And you have a couple ski resorts nearby, right?
Right, yeah. Ski resorts,
and it's
country clubs.
Traditionally been like kind of a spot for wealthy industrialists to have their second homes and play golf and stuff, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how I started and what it remains, you know.
So what has been going on with your business since we last spoke in October of 2020? It seems like a lot has happened in the 18 months or so since we last spoke. Have you been busy?
Yeah, it's been extremely busy. There's a lot more demand than I've ever seen.
What's driving that, Andy? Do you know?
I don't know if people were feeling flush there for a while, or it's, they had time on their hands. I hear a narrative. A lot of people were home and kind of picking their houses apart and what worked and what didn't work. So more decided they needed more remodeling, I guess.
And is that continuing? Is it still folks who are now working from home or have moved back from somewhere else to their second home or have moved to the country?
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that out here. Because I guess you don't have to be in the city anymore if you don't want to. So pretty much everyone I work for is either retired or work from home at this point.
And are they folks who are from the area, or have they come from elsewhere?
One of our current customers is just moved from Texas. So I think, our real estate's still a bargain compared to other places in the country. So they're kind of getting displaced from this West Coast migration of people from California and New Mexico and, Washington, kind of moving into Texas. And so
these folks are moving to Ligonier to get away from the Californians, right?
I guess, I think it's just the people I talked to said that their house is worth a lot more than it was a few years ago. So they're cashing out in the boom, I think, is what they're thinking.
So one of the things I can keep hearing about is the difficulty getting certain materials. Like I've heard plastics and copper wire meter sockets was one of the things I heard people talking about. Have you been having trouble getting stuff to build houses?
Yeah, and it's so inconsistent and so strange, and it's real arbitrary things. Like you mentioned, like one day you won't be able to get plumbing fittings, and one day they won't have this thing, or they haven't had the type of spackling I've used for 20 years. I haven't been able to find it for like 9 months, So
what are you looking for? Maybe someone listening will help you out.
Right. I forget what it's called all the time, if you would ask me. But I recognize the can, and it hasn't been there, so I'm using like a Sherwin-Williams knockoff because it's all I can get.
Wow. And are you hearing similar things from your subcontractors?
Yeah, especially my excavator is having a nightmare of a time keeping pipe in stock. Now he goes through a lift of pipe every couple weeks. So,
So he's using this, I presume, for like drain tile and maybe septic systems and stuff like that.
right. Yeah. And conduit, electrical conduit. And, so we kind of are keeping an eye out for each other. Like I saw at one point at Lowe's, they just put like a brand new lift up, and I called him and he's like, buy it all, just buy it all and bring it here. So we bought the whole lift and got it to him, but the prices of, now they're starting to go up again, I guess. I think he told me he paid $96 for a stick of 3-inch conduit, electrical conduit.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And what are you paying for like a 2x4, for example, now?
At our local hardware lumbers, standalone mom and pop, I paid $10.40 for a 2x4 on Friday. I think the big box, they're $9.
Are
like
you
$9.
like using salvaging materials, staving things that you would have otherwise tossed aside?
Well, I'm more careful. Like I bought 7 2x4s, instead of my usual
10.
instead of 20, we'll just throw 20 on. We'll use
You
them,
just round up always, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. So it's like, how many do we actually need? You guys count, So
The other thing I've heard lately is that when folks contact you about doing work, they often are not as driven by price. They're not as concerned what does it cost, more as when and if can you do it. Have you experienced that too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The first thing people want to talk about is your availability, and if you have time to do it, if you have the people to do it. And yeah, a lot of times I don't take that seriously. They're like, we don't care, just start it. But
because you
they
don't
always
think they
care
mean
when
it.
they get the bill. Yeah. I guarantee they'll care when they get the invoice. They have no idea, and a lot of that cost is market driven. We have to pass on all this stuff we're paying to other people, so it doesn't cost what it cost 2 years ago to do the same work.
I've heard that subcontracted work is especially expensive. I know you do a lot of electrical work and plumbing of your own on your projects. Are you able to charge more for those specialty trade work?
We kind of have one labor rate. So I've always tried to elevate the carpenter rate. So, and then if we do mechanical stuff, that kind of, I feel like that's a added value to us. It makes us more feasible overall. And that's kind of the feedback we got. So
it keeps more things in your control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on small, in the winter, we do a lot of small jobs. So, there's like 3 electricians in town and they're all great. And they have their own standalone customers. They don't just they work directly for the public. So they're not going to come and put 8 can lights in for me like it's an emergency, so it just helps us move through on bigger projects. We would have them take over, but.
What do you think? Will this continue? I mean, you've been through a few ups and downs, I'm sure, in your career, and it always seems like it's going to last forever when times are good, but something happens usually to correct the market.
Yeah, that's true. I think the advantage I have at my age versus everybody that came before me was that there's not a bunch of 25-year-old hotshots like nipping at my heels. You know what I mean? The next generation behind me is not nearly as big as mine that's doing it. And I also saw that a lot with COVID, at least in the last 2 years. A lot of the older guys were just like, you know what, to hell with this. I'm moving to Florida. I'm done. I'm not dealing with it anymore. Because we had guys, they're working into their 70s, I mean, and they're running work, but they're running crews and they're still out there every day. And we lost 2 or 3 of those guys. So when you look at a small,
I think it, put life into perspective for a lot of folks, right? You see people dying in the hospital and you're like, I don't know, maybe I should do some of the things I want to do, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think there's not enough. I don't think there's going to be enough labor to meet demand, even if demand slumps a little bit,
What do you think? What are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about that?
I have no idea. I think, we really need to elevate what we do as a technical trade, because that's what it is. a lot of people think that you are Joe Lunchbox in a pickup truck and you can barely read. And, what we do is become so hyper technical that it is on the same level as a lot of other technical fields, at least if you do it properly. So hopefully the whole idea of what we do will kind of change from these, tropes and cliches, and people will start recognizing what it really takes to do what we do.
You've probably heard me say it. How do you know you like something if you've never been exposed to it? We don't have any trade school or outlets for young people to even get a taste of this work. I mean, how do we solve that problem?
I'm not sure. It's funny. My daughter actually went on a field trip yesterday to our local Votech, and she's 11, so she's in middle school. So we do have a Votech program with our high school. And it takes care of like all the local high schools. I'm not really sure what that's like in other areas, but it does teach, the main trades, carpentry, masonry, auto repair, welding, cosmetology,
probably food service, right?
I think nursing assistant or like something along the, medical aid. So
what did she think about that?
Well, they did her hair, so she loved it, right? Which I thought was really shrewd, I mean, that's a good way to, excite people. I thought that was a smart program. And she had one of our branded sweatshirts on, said some of the guys in the, were like, how do I find, we need jobs when we're done. And so we'll see.
There you go, man.
Yeah. Yeah, if they have the wherewithal to like look me up on the internet and contact me. Yeah. Yeah. To have some way to get to work, we'll see what you can do, for sure.
I think it's great that those programs are still out there. I hope kids are going to them. That's my worry.
Yeah, I think ours does really well, but then again, we are in a pretty rural area, so.
I don't see young folks on construction sites much, I got to say. And I don't see any doing highway work or doing utility work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my uncle just retired as a heavy highway superintendent, and he's 75. I think he retired at 75. And they're just like, you can't quit. Like, we don't have another you. Like,
I think they just keep paying them so much money they can't stop, right?
Well, yeah, luckily for him, my cousin who's I think 52 now, is like moving into his position. So, yeah, I mean, you have these, you have a lot of the older generation still running work on big jobs because you can't, there's the funnel is just nobody's getting in the funnel. Yeah.
What did your mom and dad say when you got out of college and told them you wanted to join the Carpenters Union?
They were fine as long as I finished. Like, their whole thing was I had to finish, that was kind of, and that's how all my friends felt. Like, a lot of us were the first ones in our families to go to college, and, there was a lot of pressure to finish. I think, and I can understand that. And it's funny how it switched. I look at my kids and I'm like, I hope they don't go for like BFA like I did. I mean, if you're going to go to college, like, let's have the conversation about how you're going to support yourself for the rest of your life and have it be feasible. And,
my wife said the same thing. She's like, no one talked to us about that. Like, you have to make a living when you get out. She has a BFA too. So there you go. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Did they support your decision, though, ultimately to work with your hands?
Yeah, because I think they felt like I had it's funny, like they felt like I had my degree to fall back on, when really I had the skills I learned over the summers to fall back on from my degree, right?
How did you learn that stuff when you were, in college or before?
Just working summers for local contractors, and then I had an uncle who had a construction company and worked for him. So,
did you have an aptitude for it? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I always liked it. I'm not sure why, but it always appealed to me. And you know how it is. If you like something, you're going to be good at it. So
yeah. Well, we'll be right back after this message from our sponsor. This episode of the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast is brought to you by Jobber. If you run a home service business like painting, contracting, lawn care, cleaning, your to-do list is endless. From hiring staff to mountains of paperwork, not to mention doing the actual work that pays the bills. Jobber is a mobile and online app that helps you organize your business and look professional. With Jobber, you can quote jobs, schedule your crew, invoice, and get paid all in one place. Try it free today at getjobber.com/finehomebuilding. So, Andy, can you give us a brief reminder how you became a carpenter?
Yeah. I used to mow lawns for a guy in town who was one of the bigger contractors, and he used to mow his lawn after school, and summer was coming, and he hired me to come on with him, and just went to work.
Did your dad do stuff around the house, and mom? Did
Oh
they
yeah,
work on that?
absolutely. Yeah.
So you were exposed to it there too. Did you like helping your dad? That's sometimes difficult. I can speak from experience.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, we learned a lot. I think I had a pretty good base when I started at 16. At least I had seen a lot of things get done and knew how it worked. So yeah, my dad did all the work on our house always.
Do you think he liked it, or was that just something he had to do, or because he knew how?
I think he liked it. His families are heavy highway carpenters. He worked as a heavy highway carpenter and cement finisher for a while. So, I think anybody likes to do it a little bit.
You and he both like to work on cars too, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
another family trait?
I think so. I think that's just my dad and myself, because the rest of his family, they like driving them, but we like tearing them apart and putting them back together. And at that point, they get kind of boring, when they're done.
Yeah, you can make them better, right?
Yeah, right. Or at least start all over,
So how do you like being a contractor? And is it what you expected when you started out?
No, when I started out, I was pretty young when I went out on my own. And I think you just think like young kids think, like, you're just going to get this big job and it's going to go perfect. And then you're rich. And then it's just all daisies from there on out, right?
And then you just sit in your truck and count your money.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Just move dollar sign bags from one pile to the other, So, because the people I work for were really successful,
Yes.
So I just kind of thought that's what it was. And, and that's possible, I'm told, I guess. But, it's a lot more tedium than I thought. A lot of managing insurance and phone calls and paperwork. And, I wish that weren't the case. I just don't trust anyone else with my livelihood. So
To run the business side of it.
yeah, or to go to work for somebody.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There's, my friends and I who do this are all like, man, if we could just find someone that would hire us and do all this and pay us, it would be awesome,
Yeah, it's hard to find people who can pay that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
any place you would make the wages, your cost of living would probably balance it out.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it'd just be nice if I didn't have to do that and could just, go to work and work. That's, I think, the worst part of it all is the contracting part, The work's still fun.
Have you tried to have partners and stuff? Because I know some contractors try that. One partner focuses on the business side of thing and one focuses on the production.
I worked really closely with a friend when I first started out, Jason Jones, and but yeah, we were young too, so we didn't really.
Neither one of you wanted to do the bookkeeping, right?
Or knew how, or so I would say he's more detail oriented than I am in that, but we were roofing and painting condos at Seven Springs was what we could do, because we were young and strong and.
Yeah, and that work needs to get done quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and if you get it done quickly, it's good, And it's about all anybody would trust that,
20-something with, right?
23-year-old contractors, right?
So the last time we were together was I was photographing you build your world headquarters. Can you talk about your building that you're constructing right now?
Yeah, so it's 36 by 64, 18-foot wall height, because I'm gonna have a mezzanine in part of it. Pole barn, post frame construction. So ag panel roof and siding, and then there's a 32-foot extension off the back that's at 12 feet. That's like a pavilion.
And it's going to be open, right? So you can park equipment and trucks there, right?
Yeah, it was gonna be, but it's all. I already think the building's too small, so like we're gonna. I built it to close it in, so we're just gonna, the guys and I were talking. We're like, just close it in before we put the corners on.
What are you going to condition it? No or yes?
Not yet. It's not a real big space, and I think if we have time this year, we'll probably go 32 more feet out that way.
Wow.
So, and because you get a couple things under there, and you're like, oh, geez,
not as big as I thought.
Yeah, I'm totally out of space. So.
So I'm sure a lot of folks who listen to this show would love to have a building like that, and have maybe even considered it. But the expense and risk seems like a gamble. What made you want to do that?
Well, the expense is a funny thing because all the time we run around not having centralized stuff. Like I've run this whole thing for all these years out of a 20 by 24 garage and trailers, and no matter what trailer you have, you don't have everything with you, so just to have some centralized place to mobilize out of, I think will save money in the long term. And just some separation because it's my private car garage, so in my house.
Right.
So to have that separation is, becoming increasingly important to me. It's nice to leave work at work,
Sure.
So.
I was surprised at the complexity of one of these builds. When I first started paying attention to them, they were pressure treated poles stuck in the ground with concrete poured around them, but they've gotten much more sophisticated. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, in fact, I wasn't really prepared for it because we had built, we built pole barns before, but they were barns. People are keeping hay in them, or they wanted them done
right,
quickly, cheaply. So there wasn't a lot to think about. This being a conditioned space, trying to keep what I could do in there open, because I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be yet, beyond storage. When you condition it, when you try to make it more finished, when it's important for it to be plumb level and square.
Yeah.
Which aren't. There's always a certain level something's got to be brought to. But if you ask a farmer, they're like, just get the damn thing up so it doesn't rain on my hay as cheap as you can, So
one thing go ahead.
Oh, I just thought I knew how to build a pole barn until I started researching this, and it has really grown since post frame construction has kind of morphed into, this, Barnuminium. So, you had a hay loft, and now you have a Barnuminium, and we're somewhere in between, I think.
My coworkers and Carol, my wife, both remarked that it's good looking. You put some thought into how it looks. It doesn't look like a steel box like these things often do. Was that important to you to have it be something more than a steel box?
Yeah, because I think I foresee me meeting customers there, and we're trying to do kind of a showroom thing where people can physically see what we do. A lot of the interior I was going to do all in the metal liner panel, but I think I'm going to do like 8-foot sections of the vertical siding we do, because we do a lot of different vertical sidings, just so people can come and kind of look around and see. And I made it red just because it would be easy to find, It's a small town, so it could be like, it's the red barn at the bottom of the hill, It's easy to give delivery directions. It's easy to find. And, but yeah, you could dress them up. They don't have to look bad, with soffit and fascia and,
You put vertical siding on the gable end, which I think looks fantastic. And it wasn't expensive, right? It was hemlock, right?
Yeah, it was hemlock. Yeah, I think $150 a board foot is about what I pay for that. So
it looks great. And then you're going to put a timber frame porch around a couple sides of it, right?
Yeah, like 2 sides with like 3 hips. and do like the timber decking. And I think I might do corrugated galvanized on that just to see, just because. I don't know. I think I like the way it looks.
I gotta ask, like, you have this business building stuff for other people. Is it enjoyable or is it stressful to build your own stuff?
It depends. Like this was a lot of fun because I just set out and said, like, I'm going to do this right for myself. I don't know. I'm probably never going to build a house for myself or do anything. So this might be my, big hurrah. So, yeah, we stayed really disciplined and took the time it took. So that was a lot of fun. Most of the time it's like something breaks around here and it's like an emergency situation or my family's displaced to a weird part of the house or the baby's coming or, it's always, so it's always pressure. But I would say that was the benefit of COVID and maybe something I'm going to pay a little more attention to, at least the COVID situation, was with all these lead times, we had more time between jobs. It wasn't just like a grind. Even though we had tons of work, we just had to wait for things. So
enforced relaxation.
Yeah, well, at least forced like getting my house done. So I finished my 2 attic bedrooms. So all my kids have their own bedroom now. Finally fixed my porch steps and, poured new porch steps, sidewalk, a new fence around the house. I put gutters on my garage, so they're not the most dangerous steps in Pennsylvania anymore.
Those sound almost like normal homeowner projects, excepting the concrete pour.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was just sidewalk. So, but so I think that's going to be our model kind of moving forward because we all kind of enjoyed having a little bit of time off and catching up.
On your own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So
once again, is it enjoyable to work on the home projects, or would you rather like go golfing?
It is with help. I guess that's probably something I didn't mention is like the crew and I built it. Like my crew came over and helped. So when you're all alone and, against insurmountable odds seemingly, right, it's not fun, but so my wife gets the crew like a week or so season. I think, things will be
to
sharper
do family
here.
stuff to do home projects.
Yeah, and that might cut my weekends. So maybe I'll golf for the first time in 20 years. We'll see.
Is Molly patient about stuff like that? Does she get on your case about home projects lingering?
No, she's extremely patient and unbelievably so. You would be surprised. Like this is in a room in my house where we rewired the second floor when we did the third floor. So there's still like blowout patches around boxes that I forgot to sand and paint. So I had to like move the camera just right. So, I get a lot like your customers wouldn't last for 10 minutes like this. And you always finish like, I know.
Her dad was a plumber, as I recall. Was he doing stuff around the house when she was a kid?
Yes, always. He built his own home. He built one of the homes they grew up in himself, and a beautiful Dutch colonial house, and totally remodeled the one they moved into. So maybe that helped my cause a little bit.
Just living in construction seems normal, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, is there anything you want to ask or tell our listeners before we go? It's been a pleasure talking to you.
No, I don't think so. It's been a lot of fun.
What's the next project? Is it finishing the barn? You got other things on the house that are ahead of that?
I'm going to try to get the floor poured in the barn because
that's a huge undertaking. How many yards of concrete is that?
I'm going 6 inches thick, which might be a lot, but I don't want to like point load a floor jack, on a 20,000
because you pick
pound
up
piece of
heavy
equipment.
stuff. Yeah.
So 50 yards. I think it's 50 yards. So,
gosh, how long will that take? That'll take a day, right, to pour all that concrete, I'm guessing.
Well, 6 inches thick, they'll dump it quick.
I'm just thinking how many trucks, like physically moving, that's a lot of concrete.
Well, they better be done in 4 hours because
you're gonna have to finish it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, because I've been disciplined. Like I will not put anything in it until it's done, or else everybody's told me like if you junk it up, you'll never finish it. So just
Oh yeah, because then that becomes its own project, emptying it, right?
right. Yeah. Right. So.
I bet you're tempted to stockpile like customer materials in there now that you might need, but no, that's no go too.
I think I'm always late to like when I realize it's already shot up, I never have these like I'm never like ahead of the 8 ball, it's like, oh, well.
You did tell me when you were building your barn that you were price shopping 2x6s for weeks before you pulled the trigger. And it seemed like you got a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I checked the price online like 3 or 4 times a day for like 4 weeks, and I was like, I think this is it. And then
you timed it well, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I got them for a lift. I think I paid $12 a piece for them.
They were 16 footers, two by 6 16s. Yeah, that seems like a good deal based on what I've heard more recently.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Andy. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks to Andy Grace for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us. However you're listening, it helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Happy building. You were great, Andy. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.